Dobro. History. Archive.
Okay, picture this. It's December 30th, 1903. A brand new theater in Chicago, a place that's being advertised everywhere as absolutely fireproof, is hosting a packed holiday matinee. Sounds great, right? Well, less than 20 minutes after the curtain went up, that same theater became the scene of the deadliest single-building fire in American history. So how on earth did that happen? We're going to dig into the evidence and find out. 602. Just let that number sink in for a second. 602 people. And what's even more heartbreaking is that most of them were women and children, out for a holiday treat. It's a number it's almost impossible to really wrap your head around. And that really gets to the core of it, right? I mean, how does a building that was supposed to be the absolute pinnacle of safety, how does it become a fiery tomb in less time than it takes to watch a sitcom? The answer? Well, it's not just one simple thing. It's a really ugly story about greed, about outright lies, and just a whole cascade of failures that were absolutely catastrophic. You know, this whole disaster, it didn't start with a spark. No, it started with a lie, a marketing slogan. You have to remember, this was Chicago, a city that was basically built on the ashes of the Great Fire of 1871. People were terrified of fire, so when this theater came along and promised it was fireproof, well, that was the ultimate sales pitch. It was exactly what everyone wanted to hear, and it was a complete, deadly lie. So, this right here, this is the heart of that lie. The promise was this grand, impenetrable building of granite and steel. And yeah, the shell of the building was fireproof. It wasn't going to burn down. But the reality? It was more like a fireproof oven, designed to perfectly cook what was inside. And what was inside? Oh, just tons of flammable stuff. We're talking painted canvas, velvet curtains, mahogany wood, all the things that burn really, really well. The fireproof building didn't protect anyone. It just sealed them inside the inferno. So you gotta be asking, how did they get away with this? How were all these incredibly obvious dangers just ignored? Well, the answer is pretty simple and pretty ugly: money and corruption. The owners were in a huge rush to open before Christmas to make all that holiday money, even though the place was clearly still a construction site. And the city inspectors who were supposed to stop this, they looked the other way. They signed off on this death trap, and the rumor is they did it for free tickets. Just imagine. Okay, so let's get into the real nuts and bolts of how this happened. It wasn't just that the inside was flammable. There were some very specific design flaws and equipment failures that literally turned the Iroquois Theatre into a perfect killing machine. Let's break down the three absolute biggest failures right now. First up, the fire curtain. Now, this was supposed to be the audience's ultimate protection. A real one is a thick curtain made of asbestos and steel wire that drops down and creates a literal firewall between the stage and the seats. But the curtain at the Iroquois, it was a total sham. A cheap fake made of wood pulp and cotton, with just a little bit of asbestos sprinkled on it for show. It wasn't a firewall. It was basically a giant piece of paper trying to stop a furnace blast. And this might be the single deadliest decision made in the entire building. The theater had these huge smoke vents on the roof, right above the stage. They're designed to open automatically in a fire and act like a chimney, pulling all that smoke, gas, and fire straight up and out of the building. But at the Iroquois, they were nailed shut. Why? To keep the actors from complaining about a cold draft in the middle of winter. So instead of a chimney, they turned the stage into the barrel of a cannon, and the audience was sitting right in the line of fire. I mean, just look at this list. It's staggering. This chart really lays out the sheer, mind-blowing negligence. You've got the smoke vents wired shut, the fake fire curtain, no sprinkler system over the stage, which was standard practice, no fire alarm box anywhere. The fire extinguishers they had were these totally useless powder tubes called kill fire. And as if that's not enough, we're about to see they had locked iron gates on the stairways. It wasn't one mistake, it was everything. Every single safety system that could have saved lives was either fake, broken, or just plain missing. All right, so let's go to that afternoon, December 30th. The theater is absolutely jam-packed. It was sold out, but they sold hundreds more standing room-only tickets, so people were crammed into the aisles. And the audience? It was a holiday matinee, so it was overwhelmingly women and children, all dressed up to see a fun, fairy tale show called Mr. Bluebeard. Just a completely innocent, festive scene. And then, at about 3:15, it happens. A spark from one of the big, hot arc lights on stage hits a piece of muslin scenery. At first, it's just this tiny little flame. A stagehand tries to put it out, but those useless kill fire powder things do nothing. The star of the show, Eddie Foy, sees what's happening and runs on stage trying to keep the audience calm. They frantically try to lower that fake fire curtain, but of course it snags on a light fixture and gets stuck partway down. And then comes the knockout blow. The stagehands, panicking, throw open the massive stage doors at the back to escape. That blast of cold December air rushed in, and it was like pouring gasoline on the fire. And while all this is happening, the actor Eddie Foy, who is a true hero in this story, is on stage in his full costume, telling the audience, "Don't get excited. There's no danger. Take it easy." He's trying to stop a stampede, trying to keep 2,000 people from panicking, even as he's watching this fire grow into a monster right over his head. But he had no idea what was about to happen, thanks to those nailed-shut vents. See, with those vents sealed, all that incredible heat and pressure from the fire had only one way to go, out, towards the audience. A superheated fireball, probably 1,000 degrees, literally exploded from the stage. It shot out under that partially lowered curtain, went right over the heads of the people in the expensive seats on the main floor, and slammed with full force into the balconies. It was an instantaneous flash of death. It killed hundreds of people in their seats in a single second. And then, everything went pitch black. Now, for anyone who actually survived that initial fireball, the nightmare was just getting started. Imagine it. You're in total darkness, choking on smoke, and there's just chaos and screaming all around you. Everyone makes a desperate run for the exits. But the theater's own design, it was about to become their worst enemy. First of all, the doors didn't have the panic bars we're used to. They had these weird, complicated locks that nobody had ever seen before, where you had to turn a tiny lever to open them. In a dark, panicked mob? Impossible. But it gets so much worse. The stairways leading down from the cheapest seats, way up in the gallery, were blocked by heavy iron accordion gates. And they were locked. Locked. Why? To keep people from the cheap seats from sneaking down to a better section? They were literally caged. And even for the few who somehow got a door open and made it to a fire escape, they found themselves in another death trap. The fire escapes weren't even finished yet, and they were covered in ice. As the fire blew out of the exit doors below them, the flames shot straight up, basically turning the metal gratings into a grill. People were being burned alive where they stood, and their only choice was to jump. The alley below was piled so high with bodies, they started calling it Death Alley. But the absolute worst of it, the most horrifying scene of all, was up in that gallery. The people who survived the fireball made a run for the stairs, only to slam into those locked iron gates. They were trapped. When firefighters finally broke through, they found bodies, piled 7, even 8 feet high against the bars. People had literally been crushed to death in the stampede to escape. This wasn't an accident. This was a cage, and it's where the most people died. In the days and weeks that followed, the entire country was just traumatized. Everyone was demanding answers, demanding justice. And while the courts would end up failing the victims completely, this one tragedy would spark the single biggest revolution in fire safety the world has ever seen. Oh, people were definitely charged. The theater's owner, the building commissioner, even the mayor of Chicago were all indicted. It looked like heads were going to roll. But then the lawyers got involved. After years of legal tricks and delays, a brilliant defense attorney got every single charge thrown out. Not one person, not one, ever spent a single day in jail for the deaths of 602 people. But from all that injustice, a different kind of justice was born. There was this hardware guy, Carl Prinzler, who became obsessed with the stories of people trapped behind those complicated doors. He was haunted by it. So he went and invented something new. A simple bar that would open a door from the inside with just a push. We call it the panic bar. And that device that you see on every emergency exit in every school, mall, and theater today, it exists because of what happened at the Iroquois. His company is still around. It's called Von Dupre. And that was just the beginning. The Iroquois Fire literally rewrote the book on public safety. Seriously, think about the things you just assume are there in any public building. Exit doors that have to open outwards so a crowd can't press them shut. Signs that say exit that are lit up, usually with their own backup power. Mandatory sprinkler systems. Those signs that tell you the maximum number of people allowed in a room. All of it. Almost every one of those safety codes we now take for granted was written in the blood of the victims of the Iroquois Fire. So the next time you're in a movie theater or at a concert and you see that glowing green exit sign, or you walk out by pushing one of those panic bars, just take a second. Remember the Iroquois, because the safety that we all just expect today, it was bought and paid for on a cold December afternoon in 1903 by 602 people. And it really leaves you with one last question, doesn't it? Are we still honoring that cost? Are we still paying attention?